The key is grinding, like every day. And I always say we grew organically. So, I would cold call people off the list that were turning 65. That's how I started. I was networked. My business partner at the time had a group benefits firm. He would give me his censuses and let me call them. So there was a lot of that. And as my client base started to grow, I'd get referrals from the clients. But what really propelled me forward, and this was a piece of advice from my business partner back then, he said, become an expert and people will come to you. Get out there and meet people, and and that's what I did. I just network, tried to meet what I call COI, center of influence type people.
Welcome to YMI Talking, a podcast where the guests are so good, you'll wonder why the host is even talking. In each episode, you will hear one of the leaders of the Lehigh Valley's vibrant business hub. They will tell you the keys to their success, the mistakes they've made, and what they have in store for the future. Here is the host of YMI Talking, from YMI Insurance, Jimmy Honachik.
All right, that is me, Jimmy Honachik, and I am here with Noelle Baxter.
Hi, everybody.
We are obviously in a different location today.
We are.
Yes, this is new.
This place is really cool, though.
It is. Tell them where we are.
Venture X.
Yep.
Is that correct?
Venture X here in Bethlehem. It's a shared workspace, and we're renting an office for it today.
Yes, and podcast equipment, really.
Yeah, this is
not
their
our stuff. That's why we're like not a little awkward.
I'm very much like a lean forward kind of person, especially during my interviews.
Me too.
So this feels weird. Like I'm relaxed.
I kind of like it. It's a vibe.
It is a vibe. But they have taken such good care of us here.
They really have.
Yeah. They got us all the equipment. They got us set up in here.
We've asked a million questions.
Yeah.
And they've answered them.
We're annoying.
We really are.
But they haven't kicked us out yet.
I couldn't figure out how to use the Wooder thing.
Okay.
And I'm like, I really don't want to ask her. It's so embarrassing. I figured it out, but
good for you.
It was like, steady minutes of me not being able to figure it out.
I also had trouble at the water thing.
It says touchless, but you're supposed to touch it.
So they're never going to let us back here.
No.
They're very worried about us. Our guest today is awesome.
Yes, it was. He's awesome.
Yeah, he was really good. It is from Silver Crest Insurance.
Yep.
They do Medicare, which is not something that we do. So I was picking his brain as much as I could.
Yeah, Daniel Banks.
Yeah, Daniel Banks. They do Medicare, and he broke it down so that even someone like me could understand it.
Yes, which...
Go ahead.
After the water machine incident.
So then let's dive into it. I'm going to say thank you to Venture X again for taking good care of us, but we are about to dive into Daniel Banks from Silver Crest Insurance. Here you go.
Let's do it.
Boom. Here with a brand new episode, and one that I couldn't be more excited about. I've had, some really cool people on the podcast. We've had mayors, we've had restaurant owners. Never before have we had anyone in insurance, and this is going to be the best episode because insurance people are the best people. Daniel Banks from Silver Crest Insurance, thank you so much for coming on here.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm not sure about the interesting part about insurance people. Boring, maybe? I don't know.
No, I like to say that, insurance people, we are very cool, and people just got to get to know us.
Okay, I'll roll with that. I like that too.
And that's what we're going to do today is we're going to get to know you, Daniel. Kind of figure out who you are, what Silver Crest is, how we got here, and kind of what's next.
Yeah.
So let's start with that. I mean, what is Silver Crest? What are you doing day in and day out?
So Silver Crest Insurance is a health insurance brokerage agency. We started by specializing in Medicare supplemental insurance specifically. And in the last few years, we got into the Affordable Care Act insurance. So now we can serve, the entire population from 26, through the end of life. So Medicare is our primary client base, and it's a very niche population. There's a lot of confusion in Medicare, and so years ago, I discovered that, there's not a lot of people out there serving that population the way I thought would be the best way to do it. And the light bulb went off, and I said, I could do that. So
then I'm going to ask, and I'm going to show my ignorance. I know PNC insurance very well. As
Sure.
soon as you leave that world, I am like a lost child who doesn't understand anything that's happening.
Yeah.
So tell me about Medicare in general, and then what you saw to say, Silver Crest really could address something that's not happening in the market here.
Well, I mean, Medicare is essentially, government insurance that you pay into your entire life through your payroll taxes. And then you qualify for Medicare at age 65. So you could go on it or not, depending on your situation, whether you have coverage or not. However, approaching that age, you start getting a ton of mail. It's a very high pressure situation because, you have to do something, but you're not sure what, and you're getting all this mail and solicitations, and there's basically the alphabet soup of Medicare, A, B, C's, and D's. And before I got into Medicare or even understood health insurance, I found it very confusing. So for the layperson, they have this decision to make that can be incredibly convoluted. And so years ago, I was actually a financial advisor. I started out that way first. And I had a client come into my office probably 18 years ago who was going on Medicare. So he was faced with this decision, and I started looking at it, and I thought, wow, that's incredible. Like, how would the layperson even begin to figure that out? And so from there, I saw an opportunity to serve a population, but also an opportunity for a business model. So I always had the independent Medicare insurance agency business model, as an idea. And it happened very quickly because I had 8 years under my belt as a, financial advisor. So I did understand insurance and independent agency versus captive and all that. So that's sort of how the idea was created. I spent 6 years on my own doing it. I became relatively successful just as an independent agent on my own. And then I started to find that I really needed help, but I didn't really know how to form an agency, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't know anything about employing anybody or hiring people or really any of that. So and I'm probably I don't know if I'm getting ahead of things or whatever. I'm just sort of, this is how Silver Crest actually came to fruition about 2 years ago. Is I reached out to my business partner, Dave, who I had worked with in the past, and said, hey man, I need help. And we partnered up, and that's really how Silver Crest formed, a little over 10 years ago.
That's awesome. And I have a lot that I'm trying to unpack from that right now, because you did cover a lot of ground. And the first is, my parents are 65. They just went through the process themselves, and they are both, intelligent, educated people, and they struggle to get through it. There's, like you said, there are so many parts of it and so much information coming at you. It sounds like your model was, it doesn't need to be that hard. Let us simplify it for you.
Well, that's perfect, Jim. I mean, that's essentially what it is let's, make Medicare easy. So our tagline these days is, we make Medicare simple. And so, I wanted to just be able to break it down very simply and help guide people. There's two distinct options in Medicare. I won't get in the weeds, but so we wanted to be able to guide people and help them make the best decision, and then connect them to the company of their choice based on needs and budgets. And, and I found that if we were the ones doing it and holding their hand, in about an hour's time, usually we could get them on the right track. And they are eternally grateful for that because they don't have to spend hours and hours doing their own research and then wondering whether or not they made the best decision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. All right. So you have the vision. Like you said, running a business is so much more than just knowing Medicare very well and explaining it simply. How did you have the confidence to sort of say, I can do this, I can run a business? That's the sort of thing that gives me the chills and stops me in my track is like, all right, I'm really good at one thing, but a business has 800 things that go with it. What gave you that confidence to make that jump?
I'll be honest, I didn't have very much confidence. I was really good at selling and, and promoting and soliciting and getting out there and getting clients. And I formed business connections and, and I quickly became a very successful sales agent where, I was hitting some pretty respectable numbers and I became a victim of my own success. Because I couldn't manage, all the clients I had. So I wasn't confident at all in starting a business. I had no confidence. I had no background or training in it or anything for that. Well, I shouldn't say that. I had some good training through The Guardian, which I spent 5 years with. So I had business acumen. I had tax and financial intelligence. I just didn't, I couldn't put it together to where, well, how do you hire somebody? How do you, So I started to dip my toe in and that's when I reached out to my business partner, Dave, who at that time, he had started and sold an insurance agency. He started it, ran it successfully and sold it. Wow. And I thought, who better than him, to try to partner up with. And, so that, again, that was, back then. And since that time, I've certainly developed, my business acumen and, through several different formats. Some is just like trial by fire, right?
Yeah.
And, and I always tell my operations manager here, I say the lessons you learn in business are always costly, They'll cost you the most money. You think you spent a lot of money on college? Well, that's, think again, because, you make mistakes and sometimes they're in the thousands of dollars. And I don't look at it. I mean, I just look at it like it costs money to make money and that's how you learn, So,
but you're very right. And I'll try not to get too in the weeds here, but we spent a lot of time and money on Google ads and running Google ads. And ultimately we learned, we're going up against State Farm and Progressive and Geico, and they have so much more money than we do. Right. And it's an auction format. And so when we're bidding on the word auto insurance, we're bidding against Geico. It was a very expensive lesson to learn that's not the marketing strategy for us.
Right. And you don't know until you know, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, even we did mailings very successfully. And I had, my first preconceived notion was 18 years ago, you get a website, right? And everybody will just come, Yep. I had no idea, so I bought a website, someone designed it and, and I'm thinking, I'm going to get clients that way.
Right.
Well, that's not how it works,
Hey, everyone, my website's up now. Come to me.
Right. They're just going to fucking get all these phone calls and it's going to be great, but I'm looking at online brokerages that probably have hundreds of thousands of dollars of marketing dollars. And you just don't know what you don't know until you have that experience and you've spent that money. Our first mailers, we spent about $10,000 on, sent them out. They were like return postcard mailings and we got some back and we were very successful at closing the ones we got, but our response rate was like pathetic,
Mm-hmm.
And so that was just like, that.
So what has worked? Like, what is you go from opening it and it's you, I would imagine,
Yeah.
to a point where now you have an operations manager, you have a staff, you have a team. What has been the key to that success, to that growth for you?
The key is grinding, like every day. And I always say we grew organically. So, I would cold call people off a list that were turning 65. That's how I started. I was networked. My business partner at the time had a group benefits firm. He would give me his censuses and let me call them. And, so there was a lot of that. And as my client base started to grow, I'd get referrals from the clients. But what really propelled me forward, and this was a piece of advice from my business partner back then, he said, become an expert and people will come to you. Get out there and meet people, and and that's what I did. I just network, tried to meet what I call COI, center of influence type people, and say, hey, I'm an expert in Medicare. If you have clients that need Medicare, and I just slowly built that network, and it just became like a snowball.
Yeah.
And even to this day, it's still, 80% of our clients come through referrals.
100%. And we're the same way. Referrals are such a meaningful part of the business.
Yeah.
What networking? I noticed on LinkedIn we have a lot of shared contacts. You seem to be very well networked at this point. What worked for you? What avenues of networking did you find were successful?
Well, the first thing I did, I was in BNI back in the day. I actually helped start a chapter.
Which chapter?
It was the Whitehall 2 chapter, I think.
Okay.
And my realtor actually, and so I made friends. I mean, and this goes back years, and my realtor is still in that chapter to this day.
Wow.
And him and his wife are a realtor team, and they've literally, like, we do some real estate, me and my wife, and they've, I don't know, helped us sell and buy, somewhere around 5 to 8 houses or something.
Wow.
So that was, that's just an aside. That's just one of the ancillary benefits of that. But, but what BNI really taught me at the time was how to network, to say, hey, let's go have lunch, Jim, and we'll sit down, we'll get to know each other. If we like each other, we form this relationship, and, and we'll share business when it comes up, because, you trust me and I trust you. And, and if you do that continually over and over and over again for long enough, I mean, your network becomes what it is, right?
Yeah.
And it takes time, and I'm sure there's people out there much smarter than me, that can grow a business much faster than they have. But to me, that was how it happened.
Yeah. And BNI is interesting that you say that, because we each have an employee in the same BNI group. That is how we got connected.
Yeah.
So Erica and Sierra are in the Easton chapter.
Right.
Has Sierra had a lot of success there? And can I give her a shout out? Because she's awesome. I met her at a BNI event, and I think she's the president there now. And she's just a real rock star. Like, you guys have a good one there for sure.
Well, cool. Yeah. Well, that's kind of a perfect illustration of how it really works. It's like, you're out there, you meet this person through this person, and next thing you know, you're on a podcast.
That's funny. So your career, I mean, you didn't start in insurance, right? You took a little bit of a roundabout way to get there.
Well, I mean, my first professional job was I was a factory rep, and I traveled the country.
Oh, wow.
For a couple of years doing sales. So I would do trade shows for like True Value, Ace Hardware. I was going all over the place. Got off the road when my son was born, and I needed to get off the road. I was living out of a suitcase. I missed my kids, and
yeah.
And so I my sister introduced me to a person that worked for the Guardian, a financial advisor. So I actually got recruited by the Guardian and started out in life insurance. And with companies like the Guardian, you become a financial advisor, so you get investment licensed, and that's kind of the route they take you. So I was there 5 years. Then I left and went into banking for a few years as a financial advisor, and honestly really didn't like that environment at all.
Yeah.
And, and I had met Dave, my business partner, during that transition from Guardian into the bank, and we became friends, and I would go play poker with him and his friends,
Where were you playing poker? I need this invite.
Back then it was like every Friday night at somebody's house, like they switched. And now we play poker maybe once a year if we're even lucky.
Yep.
But again, to the point of networking, I met Dave at a networking event.
Yeah.
Back in 2005, and we were both financial advisors, and and back then I didn't really understand the concept of networking that well. And here I'm meeting Dave, and he's a financial advisor, and I'm like, this is my competition, right? And
right.
Meanwhile, and he's very cool. Like, he's a very nice guy, and he's a like a big guy in stature, So I'm standing there looking up at him, and he's like, "Hey," we start talking, and he's like, "Do you play poker?" And at the time, I really was into it, and I said, "Yeah." So he invited me to his house that Friday, and and it was like becoming friends with his friends was like all the friends I grew up with. We just all, like, I hit it off so well,
Yeah.
So
that was the heat. I graduated high school 2005, and that's when poker was everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly the time it was too.
Yeah.
And I was playing at a couple different places all the time, and so it was just like a very opportune time to do that. And so that's how I met my business partner, and we started. It took us a couple of years to start working together, but I started working in his firm as an independent agent, servicing his clients.
Yeah.
We had a lot of clients.
Talk to me about the benefits of having a business partner. I think a lot of us who are, the sole owner or things like that, it can get lonely at times. You have these issues and you can't take them anywhere, and you kind of have to live with them and sit with them yourself. Do you find that, having David gives you someone to bounce things off of and have a working dynamic like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think originally that was like my sole, was my goal, to have somebody like him, and especially somebody that had his kind of business acumen and experience and confidence and everything else. And so, yeah, over the years that has been, tremendously helpful. He doesn't actually, like, we're partners, but I'm actually an employee, the president of the company. Mm-hmm. And he's not even an active employee. He has his own firm.
Yeah.
And so he almost acts as a business coach in a way, and, handles some of the things that I don't, deal with. And because, a business partner could be really good, or it could also be really bad.
Yeah.
It's just like a marriage, you could have a good marriage or you could have a bad marriage. Dave and I,
my wife would say she knows about that for sure.
They might want to talk. She might want to talk to my wife.
We are not getting her on this podcast.
No, ditto.
No, I got a question for you. Did you say that you and your wife own rental properties?
We do, yeah.
How did you get into that, and how have you found that?
So since my very first house that I bought when I was 25, I started learning how to do work. My dad always, I learned from him. I helped him. And he gave me the bug. I thought real estate, that's where it's at. I even got my real estate license. I actually thought that's what I was going to do. So, I just sort of along the years just really always had that desire to own rental properties and do work. And so that's how it went. So we fixed up, my current wife and I have done probably about 4 properties, top to bottom, where a couple of them we still own, some of them we sold. Now we have vacation rental properties.
Oh, like VRBO and Airbnb?
Yeah, Airbnb. We have one down in Florida, and then we have one we just purchased up in the Poconos. So,
where in the Poconos? You're talking my language now.
Ah, nice. Do you know Arrowhead Lake?
Yeah.
Yep, that's where we're at.
Very nice.
Yeah, so that's to me that's like my stress relieving job to go.
And so, are you actively involved in renovations and making them better?
Yep,
See,
I go right now. I'm driving up probably Wednesday or Thursday night each week. Doing whatever. I mean, we've been ripping stuff out, spackling, all that stuff. I get my hands dirty, and I love it. And my brother-in-law is actually very skilled. He's my floor guy, cabinet guy, and so. And we help each other back and forth. They also have properties. So
my wife's family is the same way. There's electricians, there's carpenters. They all help each other out. And then she married me, and that's just one more disappointment for her list.
You're the guy that keeps the bank accounts.
I'm trying my best here.
Yeah.
So I wanted to do something. We are sponsored by Zcraft, curators of taste. They cater food, but then they also have a couple coffee locations where you can go sip on some delicious coffee. And, it's just a great experience all around. And so we have scheduled this segment for them, and it's called Sip Happens. And, sometimes you're working and things happen and sip happens. And this is a chance for you to kind of tell an embarrassing story or something where a sip happened to you.
Yeah, I have a good one, actually. It's maybe the one I thought of before, but this is a good one. So years ago, I started a job working for a bank. I think it was Citizens Bank. And they sent me up to Boston for training, and I was staying at the Marriott in the Boston Harbor. And I was out that night, all the guys
networking,
the gals, we would go out and we'd have a good time.
Yeah.
So, but you had to get up early the next day, and I got up early. I went downstairs. I had my USA Today, and I went into the bathroom. I need to use the bathroom. So I was sitting in a stall. I was reading USA Today, and all of a sudden I hear what sounded a lot like high heels walking across the floor.
Oh no.
And I was like, what is going on? So I look out the crack, and there's a woman standing in front of the mirror doing her makeup. And I was like, oh my God, I'm not. I'm in the women's room.
What do you do? Like, how do you get out of there?
I sat there until she left.
Uh-huh.
And I quickly, got myself together and went out the door, turned around, and I saw women on the side. And I proceeded to go to training,
Yes.
Nothing ever happened.
Right. Well, that is a very good Sip Happens. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
So I'm realizing we are very close on time here. It always flies by, and I hate it. Is there anything that we didn't hit? Anything about Silver Crest? Anything about you, your family? Anything you want a chance to talk about before we wrap this up?
Well, I wanted to just give a shout out to my wife.
Yeah.
She, when I started,
making me look bad again. I appreciate it, Daniel.
All right, you can cut this part out. Just add this part to your wife. But so when I started years ago in the business, she had to really put a lot of faith in me. I told her, I said, look, I have this idea for an independent agency to specialize in Medicare, but honey, I'm not going to make a lot of money the first year. In fact, you're going to have to pay all the bills. I'll pay my car payment and what I can pay, but we're going to live tight to the cup for at least a year, probably 2. And there was no argument. She said, okay, I trust you. And, and so after a couple of years, things started to loosen up, and she helped me a lot. And then she actually quit her job and came and helped me in my business and worked with me for about 10 years.
Wow.
And my wife is an excellent worker. She puts her head down. She gets things done. She was a tremendous customer service person, and she had her license. She had all her licenses and everything. She could do everything.
Wow.
And the clients loved her. And eventually, our AEP, or annual enrollment period, is really very stressful. And it just burned her out. And she said, look, I can't do this anymore. And I said, all right, honey, you can fly off into the sunset. We're good. We have staff, And, really, so she was super instrumental in helping to get this business off the ground just in so many different ways. So I just want to give a shout out to her, because it wouldn't have happened really without her.
Yeah, that's such a cool story. And it's nice, sometimes you can't work together. You live together, you can raise a family together, but you can't work together. So it's nice when you're able to have both of those. That's awesome.
It had its challenges, Jim. I mean, vacations were a little tense sometimes. We're talking about client problems, and I'd say, well, I don't want to talk about that. Go to the beach.
Yeah, exactly. Daniel, this was awesome. I really enjoyed the conversation. Insurance, you made it not boring, so thank you for that. This was a really great episode, so I can't thank you enough for coming on here.
Well, cool, man. I appreciate you having me on. This is a lot of fun. And, I know you guys are doing big things in Allentown too, and this is a cool thing. So thanks a lot, Jim. Appreciate you, man.
Absolutely. Have a good one, man.
Yeah, you too. Take care.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the YMI Talking podcast. If you enjoyed this and want to hear more content from amazing personalities in the Valley, please subscribe, leave a rating, and drop us a quick review.